Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the I'm Telling God About This podcast. Another fantastic week in the news. God is moving around the world, and it's nice to see America kind of following along for a change. We got big names, Joe Rogan with some new thoughts on church, some new insight into what's going on with him and his walk from a conversation from his episode with Francis Foster and Costin Cassin. I don't know who either of those people are, but stick around and we'll get to that later. But before we do, some other big news, right? One of the things a lot of people have been talking about, there's been a lot of interesting stuff going on in X, is the mass killing of Christians, mass persecution of Christians in Nigeria. So, yeah, a lot of craziness going on with that. So, what do you guys? What's your take? What are we talking about?
Each one guess at who's killing the Christians.
I was gonna say. I mean, I would imagine.
Does it rhyme with Muslims?
I feel like we are the anomaly, the exceptions, not the rules. And it's like, oh, we live in the 21st century. It's 2025. There shouldn't be anyone who's getting mass murdered anywhere in the world. We all like to hug trees and chew on bark. What are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, no, this is actually real. Leave a comment if you didn't know this was happening. I'm actually curious to take a poll. But yeah, like massive amount of slaughtering of Christians.
And I mean, like 100,000 or something so far. So, I mean, and this is going off of what we talked about last episode, where we talked about Sharia law and the U.S. Constitution just doesn't mix. It's the same thing anywhere there is a high population of Islam. They will overtake the country and they will either impose jizya taxes on Christians and basically get an income. And then you can be a Christian, but you can't really be a Christian, right? So they'll say, well, you can go to church, but you can't ring the bells. You can't evangelize. You can't try to convert people. And then also you have to house Muslim men in your house and have them sleep in your bed if they don't want to go home. Like it's really just an oppressive state. It's really stupid. But so it is not something where like, oh, we can live in peace no matter what they tell you. It's not a state in which everybody is working together. But this is what happens. And so Boko Haram, this extremist Muslim extremist group, has been, I mean, I think years ago back in the Obama administration, they kidnapped a bunch of Christian girls.
Dude, they kidnapped.
I don't think we ever got those
in Indonesia
Christian
and everywhere else. Yeah, it's not a new thing, unfortunately.
And now they're killing hundreds of thousands of Christians, and the Christian world, seems to be silent.
Here's an interesting take. CNN just wrote an article 3 days ago. Of course, it would have the classic bent that you would assume, but it says the reality on the ground, experts and analysts say, is a more complex and nuanced one. Both Christians and Muslims, the two main religious groups in the country of more than 230 million people, have been victims of attacks by radical Islamists.
Fundamentalist.
Anyway.
It's pronounced fundamentalist Islam. And dude, I tell you what. And you know what's funny though? I got to give him credit because the reality is, and this is what a lot of people just don't realize, this kind of stuff is happening all over the world, all of the time.
Yeah.
Christians are being persecuted and nobody cares. So the fact that, it's being reported on at all is, good to know.
I think it's said something about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. So I'm
really torn on this one. Not torn. If I consider my role as an American, I don't have any interest in getting my country mired in foreign conflicts. And to Trump's credit, I don't think he was talking about, or at least so far, he was talking about non-kinetic interventions to pressure other people into,
he was waving his stick.
Exactly. Which is fine.
Tim, the good news for you is that we don't have to worry about getting mired into war because Eric Prince, the Prince of Blackwater, the man with the military, stepped in and dropped an amazing tweet. I don't know if we have that, but if we can pull it up here in a second. But I'm gonna go ahead and
Eric?
tell you,
Like, give me
Eric
context.
Prince.
I don't know what you're saying.
You know
First of
what
all-
Blackwater is?
Here, we'll go right
I
here.
do. No one else does. Give
Well,
me context.
If you would like to know about Eric Prince, you should read this book.
Got the book.
It's
Just
called Blackwater, right here, just right here under Spurgeon, adjacent to Homilic.
So if you're still listening and you don't know, it's a government contractor, is what it is.
Okay, so
It's
that's a gross oversimplification. First of all, it's a private military corporation, and
I
the
asked
one
you to
made
explain it.
infamous. I'm explaining. I'm getting there. If you're just listening, I held up a copy of a book,
pitching a book.
Blackwater: The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Eric Prince
There we go.
is the proprietor of said organization. It's been rebranded. Blackwater doesn't exist anymore. It went under the name Z, and then there's a couple other ones. There's some bad press during the War on Terror. But that being said, this guy's got a private military effectively, and he basically tweeted Trump in response to Trump's tweet and basically said, you have my number, Mr. President. Like,
And that is literally the source of my ambivalence, because I don't feel like miring my country in, like, it's not our civic responsibility to intervene on behalf of anybody who happens to be a Christian anywhere in the world with military force. However, as a Christian, I would 100%, what we need is a knightly order, like the
Right.
Hospitallers and the Teutonics and all these guys.
we have
Templars.
Team America.
Yeah,
World
the Templars.
Police, okay, you need to calm down.
No, I'm saying
right?
that I am pro-intervention. I just want to do it under a specifically Christian battle flag that is,
Agreed.
non-governmental in nature. I think
concur,
that we should
unless it's
have because that's how the Crusades were formed. I mean, they were sponsored by various states, but those knightly orders were not themselves answerable to their, earthly rulers.
Eric Prince,
So-
we got your next rebrand. All right, we're here for it. Okay.
Here's the
We gotta-
tweet in the
yeah.
The Arch
chat if you wanna-
Templars.
If you wanna check,
the
pull it up.
Arch Templars.
The Arch Templars.
Subsidiary of the Arch Baptist
Under the
denomination.
Arch-Baptists.
Like and subscribe. Tell you what.
Well, anyway,
funny.
so the point is Christians are getting murdered in droves. No one cares. Trump said something about it. Now the world talks about it for the next 48 to 72 hours, and then we'll go back to navel gazing about whatever it is that the media wants to talk about next. But it's just interesting to me because Trump, and I don't think anyone's advocating for, like, let's go get into another military conflict, but using the powers that the American government has and the morals we claim to possess, waving your big stick around, walk softly and carry a big stick, right? Like, he's basically saying, hey, cut it out, Nigeria. And it would be cool for the world to acknowledge, hey, this injustice thing, this is happening all over the place. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like people need to understand that in 2025, people are still getting mass murdered. And who might those people be? It's always just curious to ask those questions.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Again, we are always banging this drum, but the people that you put into power will elevate the things that they care about, right? It's human nature. And, regardless of how you feel about, expansionist, imperialist, Team America world police policies, if we're gonna do anything internationally that's not for American people, I would certainly hope it would be in the pursuit of, again, the key purpose of government, to promote good and punish evil. And last time I checked, mass murdering Christians is the definition of evil. So, I hear you, and I agree. What the dream is that we have a government that is a nation that is Christian and is promoting and pushing and advancing the gospel and allowing the gospel to go forth, and protecting communities of faith, around the world. I think that would be a noble thing, but it would be something that the American people would have to want and continue to to push for. And
here's why I struggle with that, though, because having a military and using a military is a very, very, very expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
And there is no limit to the amount of resources that could be expended in pursuit of those admittedly noble goals that you just outlined. And so you get to a point where you have to ask the question whether or like to what extent are we in America, Americans, corporately obligated, because that's what you're doing when you're using government power taxed from people to go and do these things. To what extent is everybody obligated to sacrifice for all of these other people, even though they're Christian, when arguably there are plenty of, perhaps less spectacular, but problems in your own country?
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And this is all predicated on the notion that we would do it the right way, where, Congress would do those things and people would have a say and all of the things that should happen. But yes, your point is very valid, and you're right. There's no shortage of work to do here. But what do you guys think?
I think you completely avoid that problem, though, if you say, no, we should grant letters of marque to Christian private
now we're talking.
Military corporations.
Now we're talking.
Well, I mean, when you think about it,
I need like
Bro,
I need the Anakin
South
face meme where it's
is
like,
going
I
to
don't
rise.
think the United States should intervene. It's like, oh, because you don't think anybody? No,
that's
because
not
it
what I
should be
meant.
so much. That's not what I meant.
So when you look at the Crusades, right? The 1095 of the First Crusade was not the beginning of the conflict with Islam. It had been going on since the inception of the conquest of Islam, starting
Ishmael.
at Muhammad's death in 632. Like it was happening. They conquered Israel. They conquered Damascus. They conquered Turkey. They conquered all of these areas, and they were raping and pillaging the Christians and the nuns. And then what ended up happening is as there were pilgrimages to the Holy Land, these people were getting killed. So that's why you have these nightly orders that to help protect these pilgrims to go to the Holy Land. And then finally it got to the extent where it was so bad that they declared like a holy war and said, hey, this needs to happen. So it was completely justified, right? And so in this instance, right, we have Nigeria. Okay, but what if then now it's Ethiopia? Somalia goes over and starts taking over Ethiopia, right, with Muslim conquest. Now it's Spain, right? Like it starts moving out.
like
When
ISIS
is
again?
it appropriate? Yeah, when is it appropriate for the United States as a country to say, hey, we're standing on values that are in line with our Christian values? Now we can sell it as something else like weapons of mass destruction or whatever, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is fighting against Islam,
To go
Islamic
through-
extremism.
Yeah. So here's the issue that I have is if you're going to do things like that, you need to actually engage in proper conquest. The idea that you're going
Correct.
to go in there
You don't
and
let
you're
it.
going
You don't give it back.
Right. No, because the basic fact, and this has just been proven over and over and over again, that these are not regions that appear to be capable of self-government in the sense of faithfully performing the basic functions of government. As many criticisms as I could have about the failures of our system, and there are many, if you look at us where we are today in terms of the broad, view of human history, our government does a much more faithful job of preserving the welfare of its individuals than most in history.
But those cultures won't necessarily adopt. Like Tim, I mean, all you need is
That's
the
what I'm
Iraqis
saying.
to
Conquest.
vote, and
You don't
they'll
expect
be fine, right? No,
No, that's
they
his
won't.
point. That's
You
his
have
point.
to. You have to step in.
Right.
And you have to have a presence.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we still have bases
Right.
in Germany. We still have bases in Japan, right? And that's at least, if nothing else, there needs to be a strong military presence in these areas.
Yeah, if the
Or-
conquistadors had just toppled Montezuma and said, "Hey, rest of South Americans, you guys here's some books on civic responsibility and the social contract.
totally.
You make whatever government seems
Yeah, they would
right
have made
to
Sacrifice
you."
the conquistadors
Paradise
on the books of
Society.
democracy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. So, bottom line,
people
you're
deserve
still
to be
with us on that
ruled
front,
well.
or what were you saying?
I said people deserve to be ruled well. Everybody is going to be ruled by someone.
People get
and
the governments they deserve.
Well,
There's
sure,
also
if
that.
you're responsible for making your own, but people
God did not
deserve,
intend
all
that. You're right.
peoples
God did not intend
deserve to be ruled well.
That's right.
And there is a strong moral argument to be made for conquest. There is.
I concur. And this is a good point, though, right? Like, I mean, this is just the reality, and this is the truth in the church as well. And this is what's so fascinating about the time that we live in, and doing things in and out of season, is that, you know, we have adages like, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I mean, like, you can tell people the right answer all day long, but until they come to understand the need, until they come to the brokenness, until they come to that, assuming they're not consumed and destroyed by it, which is many times the case, assuming they live through that, only when they've seen that need and are willing to turn to that on their own do we ever see that kind of change. Or, to your point, unless they're conquered and forced to, in which case, and again, we go back to the point of the purpose of governance. Like, why should we why does conquest a good thing? Well, simple. If, you know, and I always make this joke, I just watched that Jason Momoa, Chief of War, about the Hawaiian Islands and like the kingdoms, right? These dudes are like killing each other and building bone towers to like absorb the mana of their, you know, their people, and like cutting each other and whacking each other in the head, and like all of this absolute insanity. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is an empire I would like to live under. Like, this is a rule.
It sounds like you're being ruled by a one of the gods of Deuteronomy 32 that were allotted to the countries.
And so what the point is,
I have a question.
Oh yeah, well, let me make this point, and then I want to hear your question. But the point is this, that when a government comes in and conquers another one, it wipes out their whole way of looking at the world, and it replaces it with a different one. And the cool thing is as much as people want to talk about how we came and like we forced Christianity, we didn't force Christianity. We simply said you can't do that heathen nonsense anymore. And turns out that when people realized that, you know, they could eat and have security and safety without having to kill each other for it, like, they were all about it. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Nick. What were you say?
Well, I'm just trying to understand and connect the dots. It seems tonally, I want to say the word tone deaf, but I don't mean that you're tone deaf. What I mean is that it's 2025 and it's globalist world we live in. Why are we even talking about conquest? There's no such thing anymore. Yes, there's historical examples in the past, but there's no reality where we're going to get into a let's go conquest now. Yay!
Well, no such conquest anymore.
And from me. Hold on, pause,
time
out,
for us.
and halt, as you were. Listen to me. I'm a day's drive from conquest taking place right now. Right now.
Yep, that's true.
Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, and you know what it's predicated on?
Well, no. It's taking place, but the world is not allowing it.
Are you kidding?
So, like,
I got here 3 years ago. It's still going on.
Yeah, it's turned in. I mean,
someone's not backing down. What I'm saying is that there's no reality where the world we live in allows anyone to conquest anyone.
Nick,
right, we just fund it inevitably and allow hundreds of thousands of people to just die pointlessly.
What button am I pressing right now? You're saying that we live in a world where it's allowed? Like,
yes.
Oh, they just...
Yes,
it's not allowed.
We live in a world.
It happens.
No,
no.
Allowed. What does allowed mean?
Well,
what does allowed mean?
There's no
expand on that.
There's no social.
Allowed means that we say, "Oh, cool, good move, good."
Yeah, maybe not
chess
verbally.
Move.
Oh,
maybe
no.
not verbally, but in reality, to your point, in reality, it happens. It is happening. And here's what's interesting: what we're seeing for the first time in a long time. I agree with you. Wait. This is like something that nobody thought would or could happen. But I bump into Ukrainians. Yet. It has. Are you kidding me?
I don't understand why you seem to think we have solved war. That's basically the argument you're making.
War in general is conquest.
That. I said so okay, maybe it's a definition of terms.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about it in the context of one government coming in and taking over a geographic location and another group of people and saying, this is now your new reality.
I love the way you say
Let me address
violating
this.
the sovereignty of a nation.
No, that's what I'm saying. Give me an example of when that's happened.
So here's
you have the stories of Russia taking ground in Ukraine.
They would take all of it if they were allowed, if they could.
If they were allowed, that's my point.
No,
that's
let me rephrase that. Not allowed. The Ukrainians is what I'm saying are the only ones, like, with full disclosure of what we're talking about and being sensitive to this. What I'm trying to say is, it is not so. The way your statement was such that, like, why are we talking about conquest? That's not something that happens. And what I'm saying is, it does happen. It is happening now. It turns out people don't like to be conquered, so there's some resistance to it. But it's not as much resistance as you would have thought based on the way that what your statement was, which is that people aren't doing that at all. Also, I want to point out that, like, we're a weekend away from, like, you know, us deciding that, you know, Venezuela is now a state or Greenland.
Right.
Yes, but it hasn't happened yet. That's
no.
What I'm
Well, the bias that you're falling into, Nick, is the unusual historical normalcy of the post-World War II American-dominated globe. The reason those things don't happen and the reason they're not allowed is because America in particular decided that it wouldn't be that way, and it has never been a positive ROI endeavor for someone to engage in territorial conquest while you've got the protector of global trade and a giant stack of nuclear weapons saying, I don't think you want to do that.
Right.
However, the thing I take issue with is not that has been the status of the post-war geopolitical world for all of that time. What I take issue with is the notion that is a new, permanent, self-sustaining normal. And what has actually happened is that many conflicts the world over have been essentially frozen in amber for 50 years or more. And in many areas, you're starting to see the cracks in that amber start to form. And so while I agree with your factual statement that hasn't been happening recently, there's absolutely no reason to assume that it can't or won't or isn't allowed in some compulsory way.
The moment that the American economy collapses, you're going to have China and a few others try to take over. And when we can't step into every conflict, guess what? All of these things are going to pop off again. You're going to have all these countries that are, borders. They're going to be taking over each other. India is going to take over Pakistan, so on and so forth, right?
Okay.
It's just, if there's no threat, they're going to just do it.
So let's bring it back to the main point.
Which was Christians should conquest.
Yeah, right. No, which was the value.
That's what you were talking about.
The point was, get it right. If the point was, if we're going to conquest, we're going to conquest correctly.
Correct.
Not
so
go
Nick,
in,
you
fight,
need
and
to
then
actually
take them and run
spend
away.
some more time.
We're not
Nick, you need to spend some time actually listening to
arch globalists.
Oh my gosh.
No, wait, that sounds way too neocon.
No, I'm a Christian globalist. Can we cut in?
I'm a Christian populist. That's what I am.
What's his name? Alex Jones. Alex Jones ranting about globalism. All right, okay, I was being funny, but like here's the real.
No,
point.
I mean that was what we were discussing. That was why I made my comment.
But here's the thing: it is real.
We're never getting to Joe Rogan.
It's a question of global competition, and it's competition of ideas and infrastructure. And so, to your point, although I would agree, your point, yes, we have had a stable global environment relatively for about 80 years, and to Tim's point, the cracks are beginning to show. The testing, our populations have forgotten about nuclear weapons. They are forgetting the real impact of them and how scary they are, and so you're starting to see things get tested in major ways. Russia and Ukraine is a perfect example of that. But on the other side of that coin is economic pressure in spheres of influence of control, like China, where you have China basically creating debt traps for most of
soft
African
power.
Right, soft power. Well, but that is still a form of conquest. It's very
well.
similar.
Then we're in the definition of terms because
Right.
I would never
Well,
have considered that conquest. But
because
I hear what
you're
you're saying.
on top of a scaffold of power, right? And so the issue is, okay, if you have a debt trap, who enforces the debt? Okay, all of that soft power is predicated on hard power.
I understand.
And you
And
cannot
it's
forget that that is the
ideological.
case.
And that's the point. It's ideological. Those people who are beholden to China, and we'll use Hollywood as a perfect example, right? Look at any major movie that's had shared production studios with China in the last several years, and look at the topics and the things they talk and don't talk about in them, right? And the subject, it frames
The poster for
what
Black
is-
Panther in China.
Yeah.
it is available.
Again, everything you're saying, I agree with.
Yeah,
and is
so
true.
so
I'm
that's
just
why when you said that initially,
talking
that's why I
about
was so
conquest.
shocked, because I'm like, no, Conquest can take place as a nation state. Yes, we could talk militarily as well, and actually, making the world, like England's motto, "Make the world England." And listen, nothing's off the table. If the world shifts, what the point that we're trying to get at is these things have been demonized, and even like your statement kind of comes across it out of that tone of that's how people see this is happening. And what I'm trying to say is that is a flash in the pan of human history, and a lot of people don't want to think that some of that stuff is morally justifiable, and they're wrong. What I'm trying to say is, if we had a majority and we decided that countries that were purveying godless, heathen, disruptive ideals that were affecting the world or affecting our nation, and we decided that country shouldn't exist anymore.
Right, because let me draw an analogy. There's this notion that that you shouldn't compel nations and peoples to change, that the only acceptable way to do that is to influence and educate and encourage and guide to the extent that they're receptive to those kinds of things. And that is foolish, because when it comes to your own children, for instance, you don't decide, okay, I am going to array the various pros and cons of philosophies and religions before them, and I'm going to let them choose whether they think it makes sense. You stack that deck as hard as you possibly can in your favor.
Yes.
And so if you were, say, Eric Prince, or, Eric Prince, in 10 years, where he's, the Grand Imperator of the Gulf of America's fleet. I'm just saying.
So many merch
and
ideas. Just
you're
the
standing.
world is our children, and you must
If you're
all fall in
no,
line.
that's not
because
that's
Daddy
not what
knows
I'm
best.
saying. I'm
God knows
not
best.
saying. I'm drawing an analogy. There are ways in which it's
Mixed strings.
comparable and ways in which it's not. I am saying that you stack the deck in favor of the good. And so if you look at a country like Haiti, for instance, right on your doorstep, and you say, these people are ruled by bloodthirsty cannibal gangsters. That's not in any way an exaggeration. And you are standing on the bow of the, USS
Joan of Arc.
whatever. Yeah,
And
there
as
you go.
you see in the
USS
distance,
Joan of
you
Arc.
see them, they're
And
eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Yes, you see this. And right. And you
The
say,
beginning of our
helmsman,
conversation started
bring
with
me
not
that.
wanting to get tied up in other global conflicts.
We're just exploring
This is
an
not a-
alternative narrative here.
Hey,
All
this
right,
is a
all right,
brainstorming
all right.
event.
I'm calling it.
Who knows?
We're 28 minutes in, and we got other things to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more about a future,
Comment
about
below if you want us to do a whole
Christian globalist
episode.
you
That's
identify.
exactly what we're talking about. Christian globalism.
we wanna talk about
these
Christian
last two
piracy.
episodes have been hot.
All right, we got some good stuff.
Oh my
This is what
God.
happens
my
when Tim
goodness.
shows back up.
Off the
This is what we get.
rails.
It's good stuff. All right.
I have unconventional beliefs. Do you have any idea how many of my beliefs I can't say on YouTube?
Yes.
This is
It's on
just
YouTube.
the
We're not
light stuff.
monetized. All right. So moving on. What else do we got, Josh?
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan
right. We're going right to
actually
it.
finally, straight up talked about going to church.
Yep.
So go ahead and share that, Josh.
Here we go. We
is
yeah,
cool.
I mean, we're always excited to see more about this guy's faith journey.
Well, we
So-
did an episode on Joe Rogan and Wes Huff
We
and
did.
how he was really taking Christianity seriously now. And everybody's been wondering, has he been going to church? There's been one-off things.
Yeah.
Wes Huff said, I can tell you, from a good authority that, Joe Rogan has been going to church, but we've never seen it from him. So, but
All
I
right,
think we
here
got
we
it.
go.
Yeah. I do too. It's a bunch of people that are going to try to make their lives better. They're trying to be a better person, and they're trying to. I mean, for me at least, the place that I go to, they read and analyze passages in the Bible. I'm really interested in what these people were trying to say, because I don't think it's nothing. There's a lot of like atheists and secular people that just like to dismiss Christianity as being foolish. It's just fairy tales. I hear that amongst self-professed intelligent people. Like it's a fairy tale. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I think there's more to it. I think it's history, but I think it's a confusing history. It's a confusing history because it was a long time ago, and it's people telling things in an oral tradition and writing things down in a language that you don't understand, in the context of a culture that you don't understand. And I think there's something to what they're saying. I think there's a reason why they all have a flood myth. I think there's a reason they all have a very similar story of catastrophic floods and chaos. And then that jives with what geologists are finding and what these people are finding that are exploring the Younger Dryas impact theory, that there was floods, massive, enormous amounts of water that are instantaneously released from melting ice caps all over the world because of comet impacts. Like, it happened. There's physical evidence of this happening. And I think that's what they're trying to say in these stories. I just think it's so confusing. It's so confusing because you're dealing with a time so long ago. We talk about how different people live today on Earth, but way more similar today than we would be reacting or interacting with a society that existed 6,000 years ago. Like,
dude, you know what I heard?
Dude,
The place I go.
I heard job security.
Yes, I understand.
Look, I think this is what was fascinating about this clip is and what he's talking about. Every single flood myths, the Dryas period, comets, physical evidence, different languages. Everything in that clip, you saw the culmination of 10 years of Joe Rogan and all his crazy conversations come together and be like, oh, it makes sense. He's finally reached the climax of the mountain and found that the theologians were already there saying, welcome aboard.
Yeah,
come on home, Joe.
We've been waiting.
Yeah, it's interesting to. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see someone who is not committed in the sense of kind of on the fence, has a lot of, caveats, unanswered questions, just kind of attending church and seeing how that. I hope he continues to talk about it just for that reason, because of the way that unfolds for different people. It's actually not that common, I think, to have people with these slow wander. It's like they're like stalking up on a deer, slowly or something.
Right.
That's actually not a very common thing, and I think it mostly happens in public personas like your Jordan Peterson types and stuff like that.
I was gonna say, unless you're Jordan Peterson, then you just string that along for 5 years.
Well, I think the reason though is because they have a public persona. No one wants to be viewed as easily changed, or quickly, and so I think there is a self-conscious caution that gets created there, that most individuals, if they felt the impact of those things, don't have an audience of 30 million people thinking about what they're doing to hold them back from taking some of those leaps. So
it makes me think of his line, which most people may not know, but I will make the PG version, and it's basically, if you have FU money, you got to, basically do FU things. But like, it's interesting how it's like culminated in him having that level of like FU money, and now he's like, and I'm now to God. I don't know. It's just kind of
well, it's interesting too, because like I didn't know about that quote, but that's how I feel. Like I find, with the exception of Elon Musk, the current crop of like billionaires in the world to be the most uninspiring group of wealthy people. It's like, do you You
I
could
know.
do anything,
I
and
know.
you're like, I own stocks.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
How
Right.
about space
What a-
internet and my own
Right.
rocket ship?
I'm a billionaire. You know what I
And
do with my
cars
money?
that are rocket
Invest
powered.
it to make more money.
So here's
Come on.
and I agree. And we said this, and if you haven't seen that episode, please go back and check it out. It was a good episode. The one we did on Joe Rogan, and the one we did on Elon, and the one we did on Jordan Peterson, because these are all follow a very similar thread. But if we bin them in different categories, what I appreciate about Joe Rogan is that he is intellectually honest. Now, he may be, and he would call himself, a Neanderthal in that regard, like just, bumbling through trying to understand things. He sells himself short. He is a very thoughtful person, and he asks good questions, and I think that's the secret to his success. Right. But it is, to your point, Tim, and I can say this as a pastor, 100% true, that we rarely see people with the honesty of showing up to a service and saying, I don't buy it yet. I'm going to come back next Sunday.
Yep.
Right.
I'm going to come and check it out and have that conversation and listen. And we said this in the Wes Huff interview, I'm so glad that he has someone that he respects that is truly knowledgeable, that's able to answer the kinds of questions that he is uniquely going to have. Because the reality is like 90% of pastors are not going to know what to do with the Younger Dryas impact theory. And, how that relates to, so the stuff that Joe's been exposed to, in many ways complicates his approach to faith, because he has a lot of data to contend with. We say this all the time, that the equation that solves for the most variables with the least errors is the most likely to be true. Well, Joe's got a stack of variables to solve against in his mind. And, the reality is will he get all of those answered? No. And is the real moment, the real transformation, I think, is going to come when he realizes that in reality, it doesn't really matter, right? Like at the end of the day, it will be a step of faith for him. And
you're not going to solve for all the variables.
No, you're
at
not.
some point.
Yeah. You're going to have to make the jump. And I think the advantage of having the money, to your point, Nick, the advantage that he comes to with money, and I point this out all the time, and this is wise for all of us, because I imagine that the majority of us here don't have, as Joe put it, FU money. If you do, hit us up. We have needs.
Let's go.
We could use a Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. But for real, though, you can message us in the comments. If you did have that, though, for most of us that don't have that, this is important for us to look at. If you look at the things that you think will bring you joy, and you think will bring you peace, and you think that will bring you fulfillment, you don't have to look very far. You just have to look to these people who have that, who have the money, who have the career, who have the hard power, who have arrived at the pinnacle of their career field, and you find them all struggling for meaning and purpose in the same things. And I find that deeply encouraging, and it's deeply freeing, right? Because what you realize is that the thing that even the most wealthy and powerful people in the world strive after, we have in Christ in full. And that's tremendously powerful and encouraging to me. So, that's what I want for Joe. I want Joe to find that, and I want Joe to talk about it with his friends. And I think that when that happens, I'm telling you, like the dam's going to break. And I don't think I'm not saying he's going to be the single point of failure with that, but I think that will be a big piece of this, because of just the sheer volume of people who look to and respect him. And of course that will come with its own problems, as one can imagine. But yeah.
Well, and if you look at the juxtaposition between, say, somebody like Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand. Jordan Peterson kind of is like tiptoeing around the water. Russell Brand jumped in to the lake in his undies, right?
Like his underwear.
There's a difference.
Great episode.
But like there, and I mean, Russell Brand, to be honest with you, was humble enough to say, "Look, I'm still learning this. I'm getting things wrong. We can, argue about whether he should have a platform spewing Christianity and theology."
Recently.
But say again,
he stepped away from his platform recently.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
In his growth in his faith. Yeah, there's some. We could talk about that.
Okay.
Later.
but like with Joe Rogan, as he's had these conversations and he's kind of creeping to the edge and he's getting to know more, I would say that there just needs to be a radical transformation in his life. And this is one of the things that we talk about in apologetics is, look, if you can argue somebody to the faith, you can argue somebody out of the faith. Mm-hmm. There is at some point the leap into faith that takes place where you have to have that level of trust. That's to say, I'm going to, step out into the water. And so I think that with Joe Rogan, I'm praying that he has this radical encounter, and not in a way where like Yeezy going to go and start a church in your own, traveling concert for Christianity and then turn around, but like something that is just
pray
deep.
For Ye, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I mean, there's something that's deep and transformational in Joe Rogan for him to kind of say, look, but the thing and I want to hear what you guys say. You see how he's talking about, like, for the first time, because every time he's talking about the Bible is just made up by men and it's not true. This time around, he's talking about, man, these people are just trying to parse through the word and to understand what it means in the different languages and different time, the context. Look, he just talked about Hermeneutics 101, which is more than 85% of Christians that go to church actually do when they approach the Bible. They don't think about the cultural context. They don't talk about, Second Temple Judaism
in the description.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, that's something that is encouraging that he's actually taken seriously.
I kind of want to see where it lands. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, me too. My biggest takeaway from all of it, obviously, like, we find ourselves in a reality where the pendulum is always swinging, and our time and our era and our day, the pendulum at the moment appears to be swinging towards Christianity. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, as a believer, as a Christian, it's my job to obviously walk out my faith. And I feel like consistency is a word I keep coming to, where it's like, if we were just Christians that were maintained a fidelity to the word and a consistency through life, and we like carried on from this world into the next, and that was the norm that identified us. Like, back to the whole stumbling block, like, the world would have something to regularly come and look to and be like, man, you guys look different. What's going on? And I want Joe Rogan to see those people in his life. Apparently he has them. I want other people to see that.
Yeah.
I love, Hughes, your comment around, like, I don't know, it has been more vocal from my vantage point lately of celebrities. Will Smith said something of like, I have all the money, I have all the things, I am very unfulfilled. And I equally am encouraged around, I feel like it's changed me even, where it's like, striving for the money thing is not the answer. Specifically for Christians, man, we have the secret sauce. And
right. Yeah,
it's just encouraging. It's like, your family is fed, you're well off, everyone is healthy, and now we can be about the Lord's work. It's just kind of encouraging to me.
Wealth and freedom is like socialism, right? When somebody says, "Oh, I'm not fulfilled by having all the money and all the wealth and all the women and all the," everybody else is like, you know what? You're probably just not doing it right. I mean, give me the money. Let me try. I think I could do it. When the answer is, we have freedom in Christ. We have peace with Jesus, and it is the single most fulfilling thing for life in general, because we're made in the image of the one who has called us to greater things.
Well, dude, that's a good place to land as any. Love that.
Leave a comment if you agree.
Yeah, listen, we are, dude, we love doing this, and it's a blessing for us just to get together every day and hang out with each other, or every week and hang out with each other. Man, we're coming up on 2 years. We're another
February, I think, is
20. Yeah. 20 episodes away from our 100th episode.
Yeah.
So if you guys have been with us, man, like, I just wanted to say thank you. Like, we've really enjoyed this. Yeah. If you're new to the channel, I know we've had a bump in subscribers in the last couple months, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. Go back and check out the old stuff. There's lots of fun stuff there. Share this with your friends. Like, cut the shorts. We put a ton of those out. Like us and check us out. We are on Facebook and Instagram. We've tried to do better with updating those things. And yeah, also, we have the audio only on either our Buzzsprout link that we have in here, or you can check us out anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple. Yeah, we're just trying to build community. So say hi, drop something in the comments. We will absolutely respond. You're going to get a response from us. We don't have an intern unless you want to be one.
Accepting application.
It's one of the four of us.
Well, once we get to a point where we have people in the chat to have moderators.
Yes. We're not cool enough for that yet. But, you know, hey, like if you want to help and you want to be involved, hit us up. We're always happy to talk and chat. We would love to hear that from you guys. So until next time. Get off my lawn.
You guys have to stop doing that. It drives me crazy.
Get off my lawn. You can't gaslight us. We know you want to talk about receipts. I got human history and Western civilization. What do you have? 20 years of dumpster fires, purple hair. People who don't know which bathroom to go into. Get off my lawn.